All right. Today, I would like to welcome Laureen McNaughton to our Sister Science Stories podcast. I think, Laureen, you and I have known each other since my kids were in elementary school. And I was teaching an after-school class at Glenbow to the teachers, an after-school yoga class to the
Yeah.
teachers. And yeah, you and I have been an acquaintance then for probably more than 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I guess the reason I've wanted to have this conversation with you is because you just have such a remarkable story of healing, and it is inspiring. And I would love for you to share it so that, I don't know, that others can understand the power and strength that healing can have and then where it comes from. So I guess my first question comes with, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your healing journey?
Um, yeah. Thank you, Jill. I feel really honored and I feel um, really grateful because I believe so deeply in what you're doing. And I want to support it so much because so much of my own journey and my healing journey uh, has been inspired by and encouraged by the principles that I believe are part of Sister Science. So I'm really like I'm really becoming passionate about sharing my journey and sharing my wisdom. Um, I feel like I'm at a time in my life where I can give back to the world and I can support younger people who are struggling. Um, there's a lot of suffering and struggling in our world. And I think that the only way we can kind of help each other is by listening to each other and uh, and connecting with each other and really hearing each other's stories and being vulnerable about sharing our own journeys and yeah, so thank you so much for the opportunity. And in terms of telling a little bit about myself, I was a teacher for 35 years. I've just recently retired. I'm a mom of two wonderful young men. Um, one of them has neurodivergence, and so that's been a challenging journey. Um, and for probably 10 years, I was a single parent, which is also has its challenges, and teaching has its challenges. So, um, and I feel like in the last probably 7 years or so, I've been on a really beautiful trajectory where I feel much more connected to spirit and to the loving forces in my life. And I feel like um, my sort of vision statement, what I want to be in my life is I seek to be a blessing.
Mm.
And every day that's the intention I set. Um, and yeah, and so that's kind of what I've come
You,
to an awareness of, is that when I'm focused on how can I be a blessing in this situation, um, it helps with everything. So
one, one of the things I think I've witnessed in your healing journey is In times when your health hasn't been supporting you very well, you are in a lot of story around needing to be a certain thing or all the shoulds. I should do, I should. And it was almost like all the shoulds would just pile up on you in overwhelm. And what I've watched you shift is out of that sort of should to exactly what you've just said. Who am I? And how do I bring blessing to this conversation? And it feels like the more you've embraced that question, there's been a shift that has been reflected in your physical health.
I love that. Yeah. Well, it's such a great question, and to ask each other all the time, who are you? um, it's been interesting because I've kind of been in the last year or two getting used to living in with my partner in BC some of the time. And we're here on the lands of the Ktunaxa people and near Kootenay Lake. Um, and so I've had a chance to meet lots of new people. And we've talked a lot about how we so often frame, as North Americans, we frame when we meet someone new, we say, "What do you do?" Meaning, what's the work you do? And so I've just been aware of that lately. And instead of asking people that, I try to say, "What's true for you right now?"
Mm,
And so that, because like hearing about someone's career and day job is
yeah,
interesting, but it's only a small part of who we are. And
yeah.
uh, and I feel like that was a key point in my healing journey in lots of ways was because you were talking about the shoulds, Jill, and so much of when I was a teacher, like I just, it's interesting, even my body still tenses when I think about that time. And when when I started to instead of seeing it as, oh my God, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to, and sort of heaping pressure on myself, instead of seeing it as that my job was my whole being, my whole identity, seeing it as a small part of, and then again, how can I be a blessing? So I
Mm,
have these little students that I see every day. And sometimes I'm a blessing just because I gave them a hug when they fell down, or
mm.
sometimes I'm a blessing because they can't find their journal. So there's just so many ways. Um, and when I frame my work that way, I feel like it's an important part of myself, but it's not consuming my whole self. And yeah, so.
Even in looking at it that way, we think about being teachers like you have all these deliverables, you have all these rubrics, you have all these um like just like different benchmarks you always have to be achieving and aiming towards. And I think it can get exhausting. Like you said, it's almost like the tactile. I mean, that's the yang part. That's the Mr. Science part. It's the information you have to deliver. It's the things you need to be able to teach. It's the sort of like very practical, tactile deliverables of the job. But the things that you just mentioned aren't on any spreadsheet of accomplishments that you've done with the children. You know,
Mhm.
like giving them a hug or helping them find their notebook would be on this opposite side of the spectrum. Like the more yin, the more relationship oriented, the more, helping the kids understand their own worthiness and value and making them feel valued and loved. And
Mhm.
that part's not anything we ever measure.
That's right.
Yeah. And so you started leaning into the unmeasurables alongside just like that full focus on the measurables.
Absolutely. And our world, our North American culture is so consumed by measurable.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
I
yeah.
feel like Sister Science, like my whole idea of the tagline of Sister Science would be to hold the feminine in equal regard to the masculine, to
Mhm.
hold this, you know, this untactile side in equal regard to the measurables.
Absolutely. And, I've been interested lately in the term mindful.
Okay.
And I love that term. But I also think that we can start talking about bodyful.
Okay.
Like mindfulness means being aware, um, being observing your mind, um, asking your mind, being peaceful in the moment. Those are mindful characteristics. And I think that we can be uh, as respectful, and we can take some of those self-care practices that are mindful and apply them to the body,
Hmm.
be bodyful.
Hmm.
Uh, and when you've always kind of helped me focus on what were the things that helped me in my healing journey, and one of the most important that still to this day is the reason that I'm breathing and happy and able to function is listening to our bodies. It's just such an important skill.
I
And
feel like, yeah, sorry.
what's that? Yeah.
I feel like that's the portal of entry, isn't it? Like as soon as we learn to listen to our bodies and then learn to respond to them with more accuracy and efficiency, the sort of the faster we pull ourselves out of um, negative symptoms that we might be experiencing. So, okay, so let's talk about that then. What practices are body full for you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Um, so meditation for sure is, uh, and um, yeah, just getting still and focusing inward. Uh, and the question that I loved the year of you, it made such an impact on me. And one of the questions that you encouraged us to ask was, what do I need in this moment? Um, and so I started to kind of learn that when I had pain in my joints, or when I had discomfort, or when I wasn't sleeping, um, I started to uh, ask myself, what is this about? What are you trying to tell me? And I started to kind of practice a real loving, kind of self-care focused care of myself. And instead of like I wrote two poems that I may or may not read for you today, but one of them is called Nurturing Parent. And it's kind of talking about how we learn to parent ourselves.
Mm.
Um, that that and that happens even if you don't have children. We learn to be the kind person that we needed as a child. We learn to be that kind person to ourselves. And one of the things that like I really realized when like you talk about Mr. Science and Sister Science, and um I had such a difficult time in my life when I was I was really sick. I had no energy. I had to crawl around my house, crawl up my stairs. I wasn't able to function.
Mhm.
And I kept going to doctors and
Mhm.
looking up symptoms on Google. And that process made me sicker, I think. It made me focus on all the things that were wrong, all the symptoms, instead of focusing on what was my body telling me, what
Mhm.
information was there. And once I changed that focus to what do you need in this moment, which was your question, um, uh, it changed everything. And so
Can
this,
you read the poem?
yeah, I am. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this poem is called Listen Lovingly. Our bodies are like a symphony. They are like a work of art. They make beautiful music that sings. They have their own unique melody. Sometimes the music is loud and jarring. Sometimes it is soft and sweet. Our bodies tell us stories. Sometimes the stories are peaceful and beautiful. Sometimes they are painful and sad. Our bodies have great knowledge to share. They are a wealth of information. They impart expansive wisdom. They speak eloquently. Our bodies work hard. Every day of our lives, they do millions of things to keep us healthy and alive. We do not have to teach them what to do.
Yeah.
They are infinitely wise and capable. Our bodies are forgiving. They respond so well to kindness. Our bodies give endlessly to us, and our bodies ask nothing in return.
Mm.
Actually, they ask one thing from us in return, that we listen lovingly to them. Our bodies are an exquisite gift. Let us lovingly listen to and gently take respectful action to build, heal, and support them.
Lovely. Okay, so you said before that you think it's been this 7 year that you've been on this beautiful trajectory. And to me, what you're describing then is a trajectory of seeing your body as something that's failing you, something that always has something wrong with it, something that's not capable, something that needs out, like something that needs a drug or an outside intervention or something. And you, in as well as went on a journey of learning to befriend and love this vessel.
Mhm.
And that was integral to your capacity to move to BC and live on the land and do more than crawl up your stairs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, like the book Body Thrive by
Mhm.
Kate Stillman,
Mhm.
which you introduced me to. Just those habits were incredible. And yeah, like just hydrating,
Mhm.
self-care, eating foods that are as whole and nutritious as possible. And that, like last night, oh my goodness, we had one of John's best friend's daughters, who's like kind of like a daughter to John. We went to her house for dinner, and everything she made was from her garden or from the natural foods store, like free range ground turkey and all these beautiful vegetables, beets and carrots and potatoes. And anyway, it was just such a blessing. And those kinds of simple practices of eating mindfully and taking good care of and noticing what we put into our bodies. And, like all those things, I think really help us to be bodyful.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So, like the interesting piece to me is, I mean, for people who are just listening and who understand my little dosha pieces, like Laureen's really Vata. She is so full of air and ether and has like the curiosity and the intuition and the I don't know, like a fairy like wisdom to you. But it's
Oh,
why one of the first things you said that you need is you're like, one of my first habits was getting still. It was meditating
mhm.
because that air and ether has like this innate mobility to it and innate mobility. And one of the first things that you started to do was get still. And when you could
Mhm.
get still, you were offering sort of this grounding practice to a body that had this innate mobility and lightness to it. And you were like, okay, one of my antidotes, one of my healing balancing practices is stillness. And then the way you described the dinner last night, it was just, it sounds grounding. It sounds just
Mhm.
like nourishing, filling, fueling company, as well as nourishing food. Like
Yeah.
this, and all of that just has, there's a density to it, right? There's a heaviness. Um,
Yeah.
and those are the things that keep Vata anchored, that give Vata a body, a container to be in. So I think you've learned how to keep your container strong because within that container then comes this freedom where poems like the one you just read to us can just come forth because
Mhm.
you have a new commitment to love and care for your container.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I love that, that you identified, because it's true, like I spend so much time in my head, and sometimes that can be really difficult for me. That I get worried and anxious because the thoughts are just swirling. And so anything that's grounding is just so healing and so good for me. And yeah, yeah, I love that. And like I is interesting because she started so in my family of the four of us, my boys and John and I, um we have an atheist, a born again Christian, me who's kind of, I have all kinds of different, and then John who's kind of more agnostic. And so anyway, we have all kinds of different belief systems. So when we gather at the dinner table, I always want us to say grace. and, and that's fine with Finn, but Evan's like, God, so but anyway, what she did, it was quite neat, was she just blessed the food by, she put her hands over her plate and just said, "This comes from the earth, from my garden, from and I want to say thank you to the sunshine and the earth and you know, um, and and to all the people that helped bring this to my plate, and it was just beautiful. And so I thought, oh, that's a way better way. So I think instead of saying grace now, we're just going to do that. Like just meditate for a few minutes on where the food comes from, what kind of like the store workers that were involved in packaging up the meat, or and the farmers and and then just yeah, and just saying thank you for all of that. um I don't know why I got off on that topic, but I
It's
think that's grounding too.
Mhm. You're
Yeah.
speaking to me right now about we have one of the habits called healthier eating guidelines. And we talk about how in that lesson we talk all about how our current world cares about what we eat. We care about did we get, I don't know, vitamin A, or did we get omega 3s, or did we get, like, like we care about all these. You need to get, micronutrients and all these things, and we care about what you eat and what you can't eat. And Ayurveda goes beyond that and says, hang on, it's about how you eat. And we
Mhm.
discover in the year of you very much so that when you do things really, really fast, you don't necessarily digest them well. So
Yeah.
they can digest in a way that they go right through the body and you don't have any absorption of the nourishment of it. Or
Yeah.
it comes into the body and the body doesn't know how to digest it. So it stays in there creating gunk and ama. And what
Wow.
you're describing about how you're choosing to eat is you are slowing down, which is
Mm.
super good for Vata, right? Because Vata likes to like be fast and be always doing the next thing. And for that Vata personality to sort of slow down and allow themselves time to absorb and take in. It is the way our body makes long-term memories as well. When we go too fast, we can just not even have the experience register in our cells. And so there's something about that that is healing, is the speed in which we choose to engage with life.
Mm.
And
Wow.
like you're speaking to that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much. And, it's fascinating to me because that's the project I'm working on right now is a book about slowing our pace.
Can
And
you speak to that?
yeah, so it's called Slow Living,
Mm,
um, or no, Still Life, Only Wiser. And then the acronym for slow is let me see if I can remember it. Um, so the L is for listening.
yeah.
The S is for I think maybe surrender. So listen and then offer and wisdom. And
Mm,
uh, yeah, and so it's kind of I'm just noticing how when I slow down, I feel better. And our world is such a place of rushing.
mhm.
And so much of our stress comes from the hurry up mentality and the multitasking and working really fast. Um, and I noticed it so much at school. Uh,
Yeah.
And yet, the parts of my pedagogy and my teaching practice that were really meaningful were very slow and
Mhm,
they took a lot of time, but it
mhm.
was time out of like, it was not, I think you and I have talked about the Kairos and Chronos time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I found like we would play. So when they first came to school, we would play. And I can say this now because hopefully they won't fire me. But we would throw out the curriculum and we would play when they first came in. I had lots of kids that came in escalated or tired or hungry, or they'd just been through a stressful time trying to get to school. So we just set out Lego and there it's called spare parts. It's just like little shells, little rocks, little pennies, like so they each had a little container of something and they would just make designs and play on their desks and stuff. And then we sometimes would extend that into like we'd have so that they could make a storyboard. so they could create a story with whatever toys they had, and they could choose, 3 dinosaurs and 5 trees and whatever, and they could just go and gather different things, and then they would each tell their story. And I mean, 21 kids waiting for each other, but they were all fascinated and glued to the stories that each child was telling. Um, and I mean, that took 2 hours,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
loved it, because it came from them. And so I just started to realize, like, it is okay to take the time you need and to slow down. And I think everybody benefits from um, a more kind of gentle, mindful, playful day at school.
But also, like, I just feel like that story completely reflects a couple of things. One is that you said at the beginning, I can say this now because I won't get fired. So it reflects the fact that what you're doing over here, where you're creating connection, you're creating a space where kids can use connect to their story, their truth. You're connecting to a space where deep listening skills are required from others, and patience and open-mindedness and all of this. I would call it sister stuff, sister science stuff, the yin, right? The feminine. And
Mhm.
you lifted it and held it in equal regard to 2 + 2 = 4. And yet
Right.
the way you said it was like, and I believe that, like, our world doesn't hold it in equal regard. And yet, if we were to reflect on what's going on in our kind of education system, it's kind of falling apart. And what if we just allowed it a little bit more of this time and space
Yeah.
to lift up the yin, to lift up this feminine energy, because maybe that's all that's missing. The structure has gotten too tight, too process driven, too information laden, and it doesn't have any support anymore. And
Yeah.
like there's no flow within it. And I think it's like what you've described is this ability to bring in something that, like you said, it might take longer, but there was such value in meeting the kids where they were at, regulating their nervous systems, putting their bodies in a space where they were able to learn,
Mhm.
and showing them sort of that they're valued and worthy. And all of that is like, you know, you don't have a rubric from Alberta Ed telling you that that's the kind of kid you want to raise. And yet, as a mom, I want you to raise my kids that way.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. I had not thought of that, but that's so true that, like you say, um, the dis-ease part of our school system is that part that denies, like, all of these things, like listening to our bodies and slowing down and taking time to play and telling our stories and listening to each other. Like, those are such important skills, and unfortunately they still are not. Like, our education system has so far to go in terms of honoring
Mhm.
those ways of knowing. I mean, what does make me hopeful for the education system is that there's more awareness now around Indigenous ways of knowing, and
Mhm.
those kinds of practices of slowing down and listening to each other and honoring and going outside and listening to the land. Those are all Indigenous ways of knowing, and we are becoming more conscious and aware of those gifts that come from Indigenous cultures. So
And I would put all of that Indigenous wisdom in the sister science side of the yin yang symbol, right? Just
yeah,
it's way
absolutely.
more intuitive, it's way more nature based, it's more trusting instead of having to know and prove.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Trusting is such an important word. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Can you can you just help me, I guess, understand how you prioritize your health now compared to how you used to approach it?
So I feel like the most important thing um, that I do every day is self-care. And when I start to, I especially struggle, and I still do, and I probably will, with anxiety. Um, but So I have lots of self-care around that. My morning routine is really important to me, and I think it's grown out of the fact that that I would wake up with lots of anxiety. Um, so just the practice of getting hydrated, drinking warm water, uh, and then meditating and praying, and doing breath body, like either some gentle yoga, or some qigong. So just having a practice, and then I write. So that first hour of my day is spent with just drinking water and meditating and praying, and then moving my body, and then writing.
Mm.
And my journaling and my writing is such a part of my healing. So I get all of those things going first thing in the morning, and then I feel like the rest of the day I can kind of uh, like do other things, like whatever needs to be done around the house, and what needs to be done in my day and my writing. Um, and
So
so
can I ask what shifts? So say, I mean, I think because none of us are perfect, what does the day look like when you do this practice in the morning and how you feel in that day? And what does it look like when it's like, oh, I forgot or it didn't get around to it or something knocked me off and it didn't happen? What do those 2 days look like?
yeah, so when I have my slow morning, I call it, then the rest of the day I feel peaceful and I feel present. I
Hmm.
feel like whatever situations arise, either with my teenage son or my older son, um, I feel able to um, be present for them and listen to them and help them. And I'm much more grounded. Um, and the days when I can't get that morning routine in, I feel rushed and stressed, and I'm more likely to snap at somebody. And like yeah, and just um, uh, it just is. It affects the quality of how I yeah, of how grounded I am and how aware I am of again the being a blessing. I can't be a blessing for anybody else unless I've already taken the time to care for myself.
Wow. Yeah, I sort of describe that in my own life as when I decided to become selfish.
Yeah.
But what
Well,
you're talking
our
about is like
culture.
capacity, right? Like what you are doing gives you capacity. It gives you, it's like you putting the oxygen mask on you first,
Yeah.
you filling your cup up first.
Yeah.
And then you have like Ayurveda's word is ojas. You have the
Mhm.
ojas to then
Yes.
live from that place of I want to be a blessing.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I love that "ojas" word. And I think, you know, especially women, we don't want to be selfish,
Yeah.
and we're conditioned and trained quite early on to put the focus on others, and and like when that happens, we invite all kinds of disease processes into our body. When we stop looking after our bodies and stop looking after our minds and spirits, we start to fall apart.
Mhm.
And um and yeah, like I just and I know, like, I mean, I'm lucky. I'm really privileged to have an hour that I can just do whatever I want. And then, like, and I understand, like, I mean, I was that single mom trying to get everybody off to school and all that kind of stuff. But even just to take a moment to close our eyes and to do what you did at the beginning of this, like just close our eyes, take a deep breath, focus on the breath, be thankful for the breath, um, and just turn inward for a moment and honor that beautiful body, mind, spirit that is your essence, that is you, uh, and be thankful and loving towards your body, and
Mm,
uh, and then we can do so much more, and be a blessing for those around us.
mm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it really sounds like you are holding the sister science in equal regard and value to Mr. Science, and you've developed a relationship over here that regards your deep wisdom in a whole new way. And I want just one last question. I want to know how that balance, how that holding the feminine, holding the sister science in equal regard, how does that reflect on your health? Or maybe your ojus, if we were to say that. How does that reflect? Like, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, really good. And like, I mean, it's neat for me because I can um I can measure
Yeah.
from the fact that I no longer need as many pharmaceuticals as I was using before. Um that I Yeah, and I mean, that's not, I mean, some of us need medications. I have high cholesterol in my family, so I do take a cholesterol medication. Um, but yet, so what I find is different for me now is that if I do have pain or something happens where I feel yucky, I I don't turn to Mr. Science. I look at, what are you trying to tell me, body? Like, what is it that, pain is a really good sort of messenger, and it tells us a lot of stuff about, did I overuse that? Was I being too, like, and so what can I do to just um instead of going right away to a doctor or going to Google and looking at symptoms, what is this telling me? And and I find that it's just yeah, um, I don't need doctors as much, and that there's so many other resources that can lead us on a path of healing. Um, and yeah, did I answer your question? Because I feel like I'm
Yeah.
going all over.
Yeah. I feel like every time you and I get into a conversation, yeah, we both just end up at a place where we are in awe. Like
Mm,
we're just in awe of the capacity that this vessel has to heal. And
mhm,
like you said, kind of at the very beginning, it knows how to do this. Maybe that was in your poem, actually. It knows how to do this, and we don't have to teach it or learn it or get outside help to advise it in any way. Like it was designed, it was engineered to have self-healing, and sometimes our work is just to get out of our own way.
Yeah, so much.
An
And like you
ally.
said, to
That's right.
trust our bodies,
Yeah.
and just be kind.
Yeah.
Um, when you're feeling really low energy and tired, rest.
Rest. Yeah. It's so true, right? Like sometimes we're feeling low energy and tired, and all we do is come up with the things that we have to do so that we don't feel low energy and tired. But we never say, I just need to sleep. I just need to rest. We never say that. We're like, oh, I need to take this supplement, or I need to go for a run, or I need to do this. We always give ourselves all these things. We never just say, oh, I'm feeling tired. I should rest.
Yeah.
Most obvious solution. Oh, Lorraine, I want to thank you so much for this conversation and the wisdom in it. I want to thank you for being able to bring words to something that is hard to give words to. It's like that idea of measuring. It's hard to measure this stuff.
Mhm.
And yet your body is just in a much more vibrant, healthy, strong, and balanced place than it was 7 to 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And you've done that through your new relationship with self and with body and with you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am so thankful to you, Jill, because you have been instrumental in that. Uh, and the community that you're building uh, just is such a blessing to me. Um, and I am so thankful because, like, unfortunately, um, this is still fairly new for our world, isn't it?
Yeah.
To listen and honor and respect the body and respect and honor wise women's voices. Uh,
Yeah.
and so
We'll
so
get there. Hey, so you let us know when your book's ready, okay? Because I feel like we'll have to have another talk then.
okay. Sounds good.
Oh, thanks for being here, Lorraine.
Thank you.